Hey folks, this is Vint with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and once again, we're going to check out 2 Point Museum. So, I am about 40 hours into the game. I normally don't do that. I typically have to move on to other games because, well, I've got a lot to cover, but I'm just having a blast with this one. I could say that about all my 2 Point games. I really enjoy playing them, very easy to get into. But anyway, I digress. This is not a review video. So, I 4-starred most locations, and as I said in my Things I Wish I Knew video, you're going to be bouncing around between all of these locations and leveling them up, individually, unlocking new things as you go. And so as long as you follow the quests that they give you, you'll get to where I'm at, and even farther, no problem. But, that being said, there are a couple of things that I wanted to share that I thought would be helpful to you folks. Because I'm like, well, why would I use this exhibit type over this exhibit type when this does this and this is, I'm like, oh, okay, so this does this. So there are some things to note about the different exhibit types and what they all do. And I wanted to convey that along with some other tips that I thought would help you guys out. So keep watching and hopefully you'll learn something. Let's start by overviewing all 5 types of exhibits, starting with prehistory. Prehistory is the simplest, it's the most straightforward, and it's also the first type of exhibit that you'll be seeing when you first start playing this game. So I guess that stands to reason. They're not going to start you off with the most complicated one right out of the gate. And all it takes is you to send your prehistory expert out into the world and bring back these artifacts and these items, and you can display them as exhibits in your museum, and you start generating buzz and knowledge, and it's simple. It's as simple as that. Now, I did click on various ones to see if they emitted any sort of positive or negative aura via the trait section of their menu. I did not see anything like that. So again, very simple to deal with. So if you want some, if you're a low maintenance kind of person, maybe stick with prehistory for most of your museums. Next, let's talk a little bit about the marine life exhibits. Now, these are really cool for various reasons. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be sending a marine life expert out, and they'll be coming back with fish instead of artifacts. And you place these fish into tanks. And if you've ever played a Fish Tycoon-esque kind of game like, say, Mega Aquarium, then you'll know that certain fish require hot water, like tropical fish, and, some require cold water, some require flake food, some require fresh food, some eat other fish, and you have to look at the different sizes. So, in that part of it, it's a little challenging. However, once you get the egg, I think it's called the egg incubator building or something like that, you place it right inside the tank, and so as long as you've got 2 of the same fish species in the same tank, they will start breeding. And this is amazing because I don't have to sit there and continuously send out my expeditions all the time to get more fish, and they don't die. So this is a quick way to generate a lot of buzz in your museum. So if you've got a quest where you have to raise buzz up to, say, or a museum rating up to, like, say 30 or 40, something like that, and you're pretty low in terms of museum level, you can generate a lot of buzz by creating very large tanks and putting a whole bunch of single one-size fish into that same tank and then letting them breed via that incubator. And some of these tanks will generate you, say, 300, 400 buzz a pop. So if you're looking to inflate your buzz rating and by extension your museum rating, consider marine life. And on top of that, I've never seen a thief steal anything from these tanks. So they appear to be thief-proof as well, but I can't confirm that. Next, let's talk about the supernatural exhibits. And these guys kind of act like fish, but they're ghosts. You're going to be putting them into rooms, and like fish, they're going to have their own bonuses and wants and needs. So you kind of have to sort of mix and match these different ghost types to please them all if you want to max out their buzz score. But anyway, that's what the supernatural exhibit stuff is. It's the same as the fish, but it's ghosts. And unfortunately, they're a bit more heavy maintenance in that each of these ghosts will lose patience over time, and your experts have to go in there and talk to them to calm them down, even if you've like maxed out their room score and all that. So they will require more maintenance than fish will. And to boot, some of the items, the artifacts that you bring back that are supernatural in nature, typically have some kind of negative aura or trait that will negatively affect your guests or employees. So I typically don't use supernatural exhibits if I can help it. So let's talk about science. This is my favorite exhibit type of the game. So you're going to be sending out your science expert into the world, and sometimes they'll bring back regular artifacts that you can place. Those are called classic contraptions. However, the majority of the time, they'll find perks that you can slot into things, as well as blueprints. And you'll be able to construct various structures and place them into your museum, but that costs metal and cogwheels and other crazy ingredients that you'll be finding along the way that you have to keep going out into the world for to collect. That's the most annoying part of this, is trying to send people out constantly to get these materials so that you can then build them in your workshop. But these things are worth building because they do so many different things. There's one that cures illness. There's one that will detect a thief nearby. There's one that will automatically water botany plants that are around it. It's called the sprinkler. There's one that will recharge your robots. That's another thing. You'll be able to get robot janitors and robot security people, but they need robo-chargers. Just be warned that you will need janitors with the fire extinguisher trait because these things will catch fire. So before you build one of these, make sure you've got, again, a janitor with that fire extinguisher trait. Build a couple of them. Make sure you've got a couple trained because this will happen fairly often. But by far, this is the best exhibit type in the game. Lastly, let's talk about space. I love the space theme, and it reminded me of a prehistory kind of layout in the sense that there wasn't any sort of special mechanic going on with them. Like I wasn't worrying about fish or undead or machines. These acted like simple prehistory exhibits. However, they were better, I think, because when I clicked on these guys, a lot of these artifacts or exhibits that I brought back had some kind of positive trait or aura. So I felt like these were prehistory exhibits 2.0. So given the choice, I would use the space exhibits over prehistory for the nice aura that they give. Keep in mind, there is a little bit of adjacency going on with these things because some of the exhibits activate when other ones are nearby. You're going to come across like triangles and circles and square-shaped little exhibits, and you have to put the right shapes next to the larger exhibits for them to activate. So just be warned, there's a little bit of like Tetris going on there, but it's fairly easy to figure out. So that's it for the lengthy part of the video. We're going to touch on a few quick tips now. One being your employees. They have positive and negative traits. So before you hire one, make sure you take a look at what they offer because some of them are pretty nasty. You don't want your employee blowing up the toilet, for example. I'm exaggerating, but there is one that kind of does that. So before you hire anyone, keep an eye out. You can always hit the trash can to refresh employees if you don't like them, or you can advertise for a specific expert. Now, we kind of talked about decorations and how important it was to decorate exhibits in the Things I Wish I Knew video, but I don't think I touched on the buzz bonuses in particular. If you click on an exhibit and go to the second tab on the right, that's their buzz bonus, and each exhibit has their own, including ghosts and fish and all sorts of things. So if you want to maximize the amount of buzz that you're getting from a particular exhibit, then try to satisfy their needs. It's not super 100% important that you do that. If you're a completionist, maybe I can see you trying to do everything, but typically I do the best I can and move on to other things, but you do you. So we also talked a little bit about this in my Things I Wish I Knew video, where you can take an exhibit, you can sacrifice it / deconstruct it in your deconstruction room, and that will generate knowledge for that exhibit type. It increases the knowledge score. You learn more about it, which in turn affects various scores like your museum rating and people being happy, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot it affects. So knowledge is a good thing. However, I didn't talk about the Enlightenment button. And whenever you deconstruct an exhibit, you'll be able to unlock new things to place down in the environment. The Enlightenment tab or the window has different tabs that you can click on. And the more you deconstruct of a particular exhibit type, the more you unlock, the more things you unlock for that exhibit decoration type. So it's not only worth it for knowledge, but it's also worth it to unlock new things. Lastly, let's talk about security. About 1/3 of the way into the game, thieves will start showing up and stealing your exhibits, always the pristine ones. They'll also mess up your museum, vandalize, destroy things. It's awful. So I had to learn pretty quickly how to make my museums Fort Knox. And sometimes I go overboard with security, but it's worth it. So what I've done is I always have a break room next to my security room. I always have at least 3 extra security guards trained in the camera room skill. So that like if I have 2 rooms, I'll have 5 security guards trained. That way, if one is doing something else, another can fill its place that goes on break fairly quickly, because your cameras go offline as soon as they get up. So you need coverage and you need replacements as quickly as possible. Break rooms nearby, it's a great thing. Consider the security chairs. They give wider range, wider vision. They sit there and it gives a pretty wide range, but not as much as the security cameras. Also consider upgrading the booths so that you can support more cameras and their range is better. Because cameras, if you put them too far away from a camera room, they just simply won't work. A few other things to think about. Museum layout. So what I like to do is make a museum with maybe 1 or 2 doors, and that's it. That way guests and likewise thieves are forced to come in a certain way. And then I sort of build my security system and focus my efforts there if I can't get to everything inside my museum. Keep in mind, thieves can pop out of bathrooms and out of holes in the ground, so it doesn't always work. However, 1 or 2 doors, it does help. I've noticed that. And lastly, I would recommend toggling off some of your security guards' tasks to where they are only working the camera room. So if you've got a guard that goes off duty from the camera room and another guard is collecting donations, he will not stop collecting donations to go cover the other person. So it helps to have a couple of guards that are focused solely on working the camera room. And there you have it. So there are some other tips I wanted to touch on, but unfortunately didn't have the time to get to today. So maybe I'll release another video in the future. So speaking of which, if you haven't already, subscribe to me. That way you can stay up to date with any new content I'm going to publish. And if you've got some tips you'd like to convey to other players, feel free to leave them in the comments below. This is Vince. Thanks for watching. Catch y'all next time. Take care.